What's up, y'all? It's LexDaLinguist, and welcome back to the Lexical Podcast, where we talk Black music, Black language, with a little bit of Black culture with Black people. Today is the third episode in the I Think That's Black series, and we're going to be talking about why in rap music there seems to be a lot of Jamaican dancehall cultural influence. So let's start the discussion with, what does one think about when we think of rap music? Like, the music proper. Usually a lot of people think of the record scratching, we think of sound and song sampling, and the reality of that is those are two traditions that come straight out of Jamaican dancehall culture. So record scratching came from the tradition of the Jamaican dubbing style. So all that was the original DJ with the two turntables playing the rhythms that exists in Jamaican dancehall culture. So you had this DJ, and even then, I know that's bringing up what rap music looked like, those old school rap parties. And then you have your turntable and the selector. And then you have the MC, the person who's on the mic calling out the stuff. And so record scratching, something that's so hallmark to rap music, is something that can be directly attributed to Jamaican dancehall culture. And then the same thing with song and sound sampling. Although the concept of taking one part of something and putting it into something else is honestly something that has existed long before this, Lee Scratch Perry, a Jamaican dancehall producer, was the first person to really pioneer digital musical sampling. So like I said, those things that most people, if all you know is the history of rap music, would attribute just to rap music. Like, oh, the birth of rap music in the 70s and going into the 80s, that's where we get this record scratching and these different types of song samplings. But they came into being even in a different place in the Black diaspora. So what got me on this journey is really hearing that there's an ebb and flow in the popularity of Jamaican dancehall culture inserted into rap music, right? Many American artists use dancehall cultural elements, like whether it's the beats, it could be the lyrical samples, it could be actual performers and singers and dancehall artists being featured on a rap track. And when you look at the history of rap and dancehall, rap became popular around the same time as Jamaican dancehall. And for me, the pings went off. And I said, I need to look into this because I'm that type of person. I wonder why things are so interconnected, because for me, everything's cyclical. And especially within Black culture, since we're all so deeply interconnected in a lot more ways than one might originally think, it made me want to go on a journey to figure out, why does it seem to be so much Jamaican dancehall culture in rap music? I don't know if it's just because we're Black and we saw another Black culture trying to do something and we wanted to emulate it. I'm sure that's part of the reason, but it wasn't the whole reason. I wanted to find out exactly why, which is why this project came to be. It's a paper I wrote and I presented on at a couple different conferences. So how I say that they're connected is through contact of Caribbean immigrants teaching things to American people, and American people teaching things to Caribbean immigrants as well, and this wide interconnection. But I think there was also something within the music, which a lot of people don't look into when we're thinking of languages coming into contact. But I think that contact was really existing within the popular music of Black America and Jamaica. So allow me to get into a little bit of a history lesson, because the history was the reason why I wanted to look into the musical context as well. So with Jamaica, up until around 1951 or so, the music recordings that were sold commercially were imported into Jamaica from North America and the UK. Though much of the population did not speak or understand much English, it was the language of the elite, and you were privileged to be an English speaker at the time. And the masses in the 50s and 60s wanted something that they could understand. So the modern recording studio was created so they could start making their own music in Jamaica in language that the common folk can understand, the nation. And a little bit after that, they achieved independence from the UK in August of 1962. But post-colonial Jamaica retained socioeconomic structures, and this caused a kind of identity crisis. So the working class, even though they achieved independence, were not represented well in the government, and economic policies supported the English speakers, so they supported the state. So this unheard nation wanted to create a place where they could be heard, and that is really what created the breeding ground for something like dancehall culture to be created in Jamaica. And that history was cool, but I was making the connection with Black America as well. So the socio-cultural context at that similar time, so the 1950s to the 1970s, so in the 1950s to the late 60s, the Jim Crow segregation laws happened, and the civil rights movement was 1954 to 1968, which is the same type of time that Jamaica was on with their liberation movement, and that was in the 50s and 60s. And after that, we to create a space for Black people, the Black Power and Black arts movements really started getting engendered to bring Black people together. This was happening in Black America. So this was the same time of the civil rights movement into the 1970s, but these were movements that pushed racial pride, economic empowerment, and the creation of political and cultural institutions. So there was this community-wide push at that time for Black nationalism in visual, musical, theatrical, written arts in Black America. And this led to the inception of rap in the 1970s and its popularization in the 80s. Those timelines were just converging. And I said, okay, hold up. Going back to Jamaica, they were getting their music from America because it was getting imported in the 50s, and they started to make their own music. But by that time, the people still liked what they heard with the Black American music. So they wanted to make something that was a little bit more true to them. That's where the popularity was. So all of these things are starting to intertwine. So I said, let me go check out what the popular music was like at the time, from the 50s to the 80s, to see how we got there. Not just with the socio-cultural context and the historical context, but what's in the music. There has to be some connections. So in the 40s going into the 50s in Jamaica, the popular music had a shift from just getting their music from outside of the country, just from the UK and America. But now they wanted something that was their own. They wanted something with more Jamaican influence that the common folk could understand, because they weren't native speakers of English. Most of them, the working class, they were native speakers of Jamaican Creole or Jamaican Patois. So at the time the modern recording studio was coming up in the 1950s, this new genre was created to cater to that interest. So we had mento, which is a fusion of African rhythmic elements and European elements with Jamaican Patois lyrics. So this is a song from this time is by Harold Richardson, Healing in the Boneyard. And I encourage you guys to look up these songs and see how similar they are. And at the same time that the 40s and 50s was going on, the music tastes in the United States were popularized as segregation became a growing social issue, and music was used as a cultural tool to join the American youth. So rhythm and blues was created at the time, the original R&B, right? And this utilizes AVE, and the rhythm combines elements of jazz, gospel, blues, and pop with a strong backbeat. So I'm thinking of Fats Domino and Be My Guest, and the things that Elvis Presley was, taking up for his career as well, and played on radio stations. And because that's what was popular in America, that was also being inputted in a place like Jamaica for their consumption. So of course R&B is going to have some influence already in Jamaican music, which is why Mento had English, and it also had some influence from Black culture in America. Going forward to the 1960s, when, remember, in both places we have the independence movement. So we have Jamaican independence trying to get achieved. So the nation, the common folk, the working class, now shifted to more of an R&B style, because they're still hearing that music from Black America, even though they were creating their own recording studios. And that R&B style, since it was becoming so popular and being a joiner and being heralded as a joiner of cultures and in America between Black and white people, as segregation was becoming a problem, they shifted to this R&B style due to kind of this nationwide feeling of wanting to be free from the hegemonic state. And a lot of R&B music was talking about that same topic. So in this case, Jamaica shifted their music taste once more to basically R&B with a modified beat to cater to the Jamaican musical tradition. And it did use Jamaican patois, but very little, but a lot of English. And this genre was called ska. And an artist that I found during this time was Derek Morgan's Forward March. And honestly, the words, we're independent, don't be sad and blue, the Lord is still with you, because the time has come when you can have your fun, so make a run, we're independent. There was something about the way the beat sounded and the way the chanting happened that reminded me a lot of Sam Cooke. And that's what was going on in the 1960s in Black America. Now, in Black America, since they too can shift musical taste, it adopted soul, which was this R&B style with gospel influenced vocals, so these wide vocals. And like I said, Sam Cooke existed during this time. So Forward March by Derek Morgan reminded me distinctly of Chain Gang by Sam Cooke. Well, the whole thing is talking about Black men being in the chain gang. So this was after segregation, and when the prison industrial complex was finding its roots. So the prisoners used to get chained up as they did their work, right? So that's the whole chain gang thing. So he was talking about them and them wanting to be free from that. So again, we're having this mashup of even just concepts, these independence concepts and wanting to be free and desiring to be free, and these independence movements that were happening. So again, we're having this convergence. And I was wondering, okay, now let's get to the 70s and the 80s. What does that look like? That is where Jamaican dancehall culture and rap culture started happening. So in the 1970s to the 80s, again, these music tastes shift because of the conflict of mass musical interest between ska, which was the English heavy music with Jamaican musical traditions. So that for them represented the language of the state and the people of the state. Whereas Mento really represented nation culture. So this kind of push-pull led to, okay, let's make something that is just purely Jamaican, right? So this led to the emergence of Jamaican dancehall in the 1970s. So here, again, you have these rhythms that are not unique to any particular song. So they're on the turntables, and you have the DJ or the MC that sings or voices over a rhythm, and the lyrics are a communal product. There's a call and response. And these lyrics, since they were a communal response, you could say they reflected the language and the thoughts and the ideas of the people. It's not just about the MC. In 1972 and 1981, between those years, there was this rapid increase of Jamaican language use in popular music with that DJing and the chanting delivery style. So that's where we get people like Supercat and Supercat's song Mud Up. Very Jamaican patois heavy and little to no English, right? Because they're trying to nail out their own culture and get heard as a nation because they wanted music that they can listen to, right? So that led to the 1970s and 1980s in Black America. So the taste shifted, and this led to the inception of rap in Black America in the early 70s at block parties in Brooklyn, New York. So we're thinking of people like DJ Kool Herc, right? Funnily enough, he's a Jamaican immigrant and employed this Jamaican sound system tradition of the DJ and selector. So to bring all of that home, the reason that there seems to be an ebb and flow in the popularity of Jamaican dancehall in rap music are these different convergences that happen along history, not only with the music, but just the social, cultural, and historical context of these places that had Black people in them. And what is so cool about these things and why genre bending happens so much in Black music and all the different influences is that Black people are so amazing that we can take these cultures and that exist elsewhere in the diaspora and build bridges and deepen connections with each other. So we're paying homage to all these different places and introducing these musicians sometimes, or the producers, or the certain types of music, or the certain types of styles of dance to newer generations in different ways to pay homage to these different cultures, even through music. And this goes back to what I talked about last week with Ubuntu, the I am because we are, the principle that there's a universal bond of sharing that connects all of humanity. And I don't know, I think that's really Black. That is a Black experience. We're finding ways to connect ourselves, even though over time we had been forced to disconnect through things like slavery and forced immigration and things like that. So thank you for listening to the third episode in the I Think That's Black series. And this has been the Lexical Podcast, where we talk Black music, Black language, a little bit of Black culture with Black people. I'm LexDaLinguist, and I hope to see you soon.